As more state and local leaders around the country join the push to reopen, just about every health expert out there is warning it's far too premature. And still, the president tweeted today, the states are safely coming back. Safely. Despite the fact that many of those reopening states are still seeing high incidence of the virus. States like Georgia were among the businesses that are being cleared to reopen are gyms, nail salons, tattoo parlors, and bowling alleys. You know, the places where you get to share shoes and everyone sticks their fingers into communal bowling bowls. So, call me crazy, but when a reporter asked Dr. Deborah Birx about whether that kind of thing adheres to the White House guidelines on safely coming back, to use the president's term, I expected her to give the only possible answer. No. Instead, she said this.
So if there's a way that people can social distance and do those things, then they can do those things. I don't know how, but people are very creative. So I'm not going to prejudge, but we have told people very clearly, and the president guidelines made it very clear about the expectations of phase one.
If there's a creative way to social distance and do those things, well, if there was a way for me to do a triple somersault backwards, I would. But there isn't. I know everyone says accomplished people like Drs. Birx and Fauci have to make some compromises to stay in Trump's good graces, but her remarks were nothing short of irresponsible. As for Massachusetts, Governor Charlie Baker is taking a far different approach to those pushing to reopen, using facts and reason.
This isn't being done to punish anybody. Okay? It's being done to try to keep people safe, and it's being done based on data and information on an unprecedented virus as we gather it and as it comes together. We think the issue going forward is going to be less about the date and less about essential and non-essential and more about what we would describe as the rules of the road for reopening. We need to be on the other side of the curve before we do any of this stuff.
Of course, that doesn't make the economic pain many are feeling any easier to bear, and hopefully more help is on the way. The House is expected to vote tomorrow on that $484 billion relief package the Senate passed yesterday, much of which will go towards more loans for small businesses. But which ones? Among them is Nicola Williams. She's a longtime small business advocate and owner of the Cambridge-based marketing firm, the Williams Agency. Nicola, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim.
What's the Williams Agency do and how long have you been around?
April 1st, not April Fool's Day, but we actually celebrated 25 years in business. And we're a marketing firm that focuses on mission-driven projects. We organize and plan events that matter, some of the best food festivals in the greater Boston area. And we love what we do. And most of our clients are nonprofits, social, progressive causes, and issues and campaigns.
By the way, I should say, I know firsthand that some of your food events are legendary, by the way. You're being modest, but they are legendary. So you have 3 employees, from what I understand. Have you had to lay them off, or what have you done with them?
I've cut hours for my staff, and so that's not been good, about 20%. To 4 days a week. And so, you know, that's not good.
So you applied through a local bank. What bank did you file your loan with? For loan application?
Local bank, which I've been with for 30 years.
What bank is that?
At Cambridge Savings Bank.
And what happened when you filed this loan application?
I reached out early just to make sure that I had my stuff in order. I'm actually part of a national campaign to support local businesses around the getting access to funding. So that's ironic. And I applied early, April 6th, as soon as our bank was able to accept an application. And I kept in touch. I followed up like a business owner should. And as soon as I heard that the money ran out, I checked in again and found out that my application wasn't awarded a grant or a loan, actually.
So you didn't get the money. And by the way, for those who are new to this, we've all heard things like some people didn't get their loans because the the loan applicant didn't have a pre-existing relationship with the bank. You've been with this bank for what, a quarter of a century or
25
something like
years.
that? 25
I think
years.
I was actually the first recipient of their, when they got into commercial lending, one of the first loan recipients of the bank.
Quarter of a
It's
century.
small business loan.
And no loan. So do people I know you have relationships with other small business owners. Did any of them fare any better than you?
Actually, a couple of people that I know, at least one business that I know that banks with the same bank receive funding. They're much bigger than mine. And some of my other colleagues from the area, one banked with, chose to bank, get his loan from Utah, and he was successful. He owns several businesses, and all of them got funded. And so it's just interesting to know. And then others that haven't been funded. Some of the smaller companies, like mine, that I know of, haven't been funded.
So obviously your hope is out of this next 300 and some million, and that's the portion of the 484 that's dedicated to further small loan assistance, possibly forgivable. You hope that you're in there. If you're not, what happens to your business? What happens to those 3 workers?
Well, Jim, I survived the last recession. And, I'm quite resilient. Entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs of color and women, we're quite, we can pivot. We learn how to pivot. And so that's what I'll do. I'll have to, cut back. We have to rethink our strategies. I mean, we produce huge outdoor festivals. I don't know when it's going to happen. So we've got to rethink what we're doing. We do have some contracts in place right now, which is great. But we will have to bootstrap and reinvent ourselves during this time and hold on for dear life. And because a lot of nonprofits rely on us, a lot of businesses rely on us because these events, they make money from these events. So a lot of people are leaning on me and depending on me. And so I'm doing my part as a volunteer for a national movement to support other businesses, share information, lessons learned, my experience. And I'm going to continue to do that because it's going to take a village to get through this. And I'm blessed to be part of a very supportive village.
When you read in the last couple of days that while a business like yours did not get funding, a truly small business struggling to survive, and some businesses with thousands of employees, well above that 500 employee threshold that we all heard about, that was supposed to be the limit, like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, with 5,000 employees, I believe, got $20 million. What was your reaction to that, Nicola?
It was not supposed to be intended for those types of businesses, for franchises who have access to other resources. It was really intended for the Main Street businesses, mom and pop, small businesses that don't have access. And look at my example. I have a relationship, a 25-year relationship, and I wasn't funded. So I feel that it was prioritized. The funding was prioritized based on how much money you needed. Don't forget, these institutions, they make a commission of about 5%. Yeah. They may get a fee about 5% for each loan. So, for some, it was a good business decision to choose to shuffle those applications and choose the ones that will give them the greatest return.
By the way,
and I'm not saying that happened with me. I don't know.
Overall, those banks that did the lending in the first round made $10 billion. Final thing, your attitude is incredibly positive, much more positive than mine would be under those circumstances. But what do you say to yourself? You've built this business. You're an important part of the community for a quarter of a century, and the whole thing could come apart despite your best efforts, not because of a pandemic, but because of an uncaring government. What does that do to you?
Well, we have to become more active. We have to raise our voices. That's why I've become active. I'm working with Amoeba, independent national businesses, I'm part of a movement because unless we do take action and do something about it, change is not going to happen. We have to use our votes, we have to use our voices, and we have to step up and take action. And unless we can't be complacent, there is no time for that. No time for complacency. We have to act and we have to work together.
My bet is everybody watching the show and everybody who knows you is rooting for you, Nicola Williams, and I sure as hell am. So thank you so much for your time and good luck. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate you spreading the story.